Yeah, so it is great to be in this wonderful hall where I've actually never been before. I was many times in Moscow, but not in this hall. And it's a very interesting project. I was asked to do a couple of years ago. Yelena from Opera Appriori festival asked me about this very fascinating project to do, first of all, Russian premiere of Sibelius's only opera, The Maiden in the Tower, which is a piece that's, even in my own country, it's not very often played. I mean, it was performed, Sibelius was relatively young when he wrote it, and they did a couple of performances where Sibelius conducted this work, but he had to actually work in a great hurry, and so he was not happy with some aspects of the work, so he took the score and he said that he wants to revise it, he wants to write a new version of it. But then how very often it happens that in composer's life other works become something very acute, like he was writing symphonies and things like that, so this opera project was left behind, and then he never came back to it. And it was only the second time after the premiere performances it was performed, I think it was in the end of 1970s, beginning of 1980s, and I actually remember it myself. I was a little boy, and I remember when it was being played and it was kind of discovered again. The interesting thing is that when I received the score, it has actually quite many misprints, and I immediately, because of course I know Sibelius's musical language quite well, and I made a list of 50 different places which I wanted to check, and I contacted a person in the Helsinki University responsible for the library archive of Sibelius's works, and he invited me there, and we went through Sibelius's manuscript, and I actually never had this experience before in my life, to work so closely with composer's manuscript, and it was so interesting because it really was like a magical feeling. I felt that we got very clear and very logical answers to all these questions. It really felt like Sibelius's ghosts was somewhere above us somehow, and so it was wonderful experience, and I think this is a work. It's a little bit like rough diamond somehow. That obviously some parts of it are not as strong because he had to work in a great haste, but most of it is, I think, just absolutely fantastic. Like in the middle of the work, the passage with the choir or something like that. It's as good as anything that Sibelius wrote, and it's such an interesting, powerful work. This helps us, I think. So yeah. One and two and three. Now the other piece in the program is something completely different, in the sense that as Sibelius' work is from the very early period of his life and kind of unfinished, Rimsky-Korsakov, Kащей, the immortal, is actually kind of from his last year, so it is really work of a great master, and it is such an incredible masterpiece. I mean, also for a composer, just to look at the score, how the orchestration is done, and it's also, the orchestration is done in such a way that it doesn't seem like like a separate thing. Like it doesn't feel like, oh, the composer is just being very clever with the orchestration or something like that. No, it's just totally integral, and it has such original ideas, and the whole world of Russian fairy tales and everything. And I also was, for me, real discovery, because I love music of Rimsky-Korsakov, but basically what I've done before, what I've conducted, is Scheherazade, and which is great masterpiece and wonderful. But this work, of course, is a later work, and I was quite surprised how close it comes to, of course, early Stravinsky, because one thinks of the Firebird, which is based on the same kind of fairy tales like this, even with the same character, but also early Prokofiev. I actually recently, because I'm involved in, I'm playing all the 9 piano sonatas in concerts, and I also just recorded all the 5 piano concertos. So I actually think this work comes so close to the world of the 2nd piano concerto of Prokofiev. It's really those evil wizards and beautiful princesses and gentle giants and magical trees and all these things, and it has at the same time, the world is, there's darkness and frightening things, but there's also a lot of humor. And even the character of Kащей, he's so, sometimes even himself, he's amused by how cunning and bad tricks he's doing, and it's written with such incredible kind of elegance, and I'm just so moved by its amazing beauty, and I think I am also myself, I'm enchanted by this evil wizard Kащей, because I feel I've been hypnotized, and when I've been working on this piece, it just sounds in my head, and I think I'm like a prisoner of this music myself, and which is a wonderful thing, because it's just a unique, fantastic work, and I think it has never been performed in my own country, Finland. So it's definitely something I'm going to tell them that we must do it there, because everybody should know this fantastic, beautiful